So delighted to be joined by Niall Morgan. Niall, I've kind of been asking everyone I've had on how they've been keeping in lockdowns and in and out within the last year. How was the year 2020 for you anyways?
Not too bad. I had a newborn son last January, so I suppose it probably came at a good time for me because I got to spend a lot of time at home with him in comparison to maybe previous years if I had had a child. And you see it, the likes of, I suppose, Sean and Colin would have been the two main ones there up at Tyrone with children, and the amount that they maybe missed out on. And I suppose it's maybe why they retired at the age they did. There's years left in both of them too, and maybe retired early because they missed out on that. Whereas I was lucky enough, I got basically, I'm a teacher, so March, April, May, June, July, and August all with him, and then again now the last sort of 6, 7, 8 weeks. So I suppose for me it wasn't too bad, and it's not a great situation to be in, and but for me it probably worked out slightly well.
Yeah, because even from the sporting front, you would have been training hard with Tyrone just before the first lockdown, so it probably was a welcome break just to even get away from us all, just for them 2 or 3 months before the club action resumed.
Yeah, like we were training quite hard with Tyrone as every year, and whenever Christy was born, and you were out of the house 4, 5, 6 times a week, and so whenever the lockdown hit, I got a lot of time at home, and then we got that break up until the club season, and then even whenever it started, I was basically at home because you're obviously not as expected to be out of the house as often, and even whenever the county season hit, it was a short season, so you didn't mind as much being out, and then you weren't allowed your collective gym sessions either, so it was basically a Tuesday and Thursday and once at the weekend, and it was like being the same commitment as it is for club, only you're up to the county team, so it wasn't too bad.
Yeah, so going on to Tyrone, what year did you actually join the panel in?
Started playing in 2013, so I was still playing soccer at the time. I just sort of maybe my second or third season as first choice keeper at Dungannon Swifts, and was playing outfield for the club, and I was doing nets for St Mary's and doing goals for I suppose done nets for Tyrone under 21s and Tyrone minors, and Mickey decided to blend the outfield for the club and the goalkeeping at the soccer, and give me the opportunity to play for Tyrone, which I was forever grateful for.
Yeah, it's kind of not a weird one, but some players do it. Like obviously you're outfield for the club and then goalkeeper for Tyrone. Like how does that even come about, if you like, that the change into a goalkeeper from an outfield player?
I think it was something I probably realised from I was quite a young age. I'd done goals at soccer from I was probably about 8 years of age. I played outfield my first season, played right wing, but I wasn't overly good. I made a decent team, and then the goalkeeper quit at the end of the season, and the manager wanted to, like, the soccer club was quite mixed in terms of community, and I was probably the worst soccer player that was good at Gaelic, and the manager decided to put me in net so I could catch the ball and kick, so
yeah.
And it came about from there, and then I always just used it if I wasn't going to get starting outfield for, be it a club team that I was too young for or a school team that I was too young for. I used it as a way of getting onto a team, and it probably just stemmed from there. I'd done goals for the school team that won the McCrory Cup and Hogan Cup in 2008, and it was like, that was upper six team, and I was only fifth year, and then I'd done goals the next year, won the McCrory again, and that was county minor year, and just sort of stemmed on from a young age of doing goals in soccer. And then that's probably where the kicking off the ground came in. It probably helped me because I was doing it from such a young age.
Yeah, do you see it as an advantage to be an outfield player playing in goal? Because you even see it in soccer nowadays over in the Premier League, that you nearly have to be able to play, pass out from the back, and obviously the kickouts now in Gaelic football the last 10 years it's a huge part of each game now.
Definitely, it's a major advantage now, because like whenever I started doing goals, that would have, like, for oldish teams, so to speak, that would have been 2008, and I broke into the senior club team then that year as well. And like I basically played the way I play now for Tyrone, where I was sort of sweeping in around the back, and it was kind of, you're getting funny looks whenever you're carrying the ball out, and at that stage keepers were still, just especially at club level, setting the ball down and just hitting it as far as they could to their midfielders. And I suppose I was starting to hit short kickouts from the end at club level, and the cornerbacks mightn't have thanked me for it too much, but that's basically how it all started. But it's a huge advantage if you're comfortable getting the ball, and it's a great outlet for the outfielders as well, especially whenever the press is coming on like it is nowadays.
Yeah, do you feel extra pressure, or do you enjoy that being on the ball more? Obviously, probably as an outfield player, you do like to, obviously we see that in games, to come out and even show your talents with the kickouts and the free taking as well.
If a manager ever came to me and said, "Look, we want you just to stay behind the 13," I just wouldn't play anymore. I just, there's no point in saying any different. I would struggle to just stand in behind the 13, stay on my line and do just a basic goalkeeping job. It just would really find that difficult. So it wouldn't be for me.
Yeah, from the kick-out sort of strategy, like, would you go into a game, suit an opposition, say at Dublin, and Brian Fenton's out in the middle? Like, would you be aiming for cornerbacks? Whether there's a press on you, or are you aiming for zones? Like, how would you approach a kick-out, would you say?
I suppose there's always sort of players that you want to avoid. Fenton would be one of them. David Moran from Kerry's another one. Galway had big midfielders there for a couple of years as well. Mm-hmm. If Murphy's out around the middle for Donegal, you're looking to avoid these sort of people. Yeah. And I suppose then it is a case of trying to get the short kick out away. This year, maybe not so much, because we couldn't get the ball back as easy, so you weren't taking as big a risk anymore. Mm-hmm. But yeah, you're trying to avoid the bigger players and pick zones and probably find mismatches. But the way the game's going, most players are around 6 foot now, and you don't get too many mismatches. They're all athletic and good in the air, and all it takes now is for a player to break the ball. They don't have to catch it anymore, because the other players are in around that quick. And especially, the further you go in championships, or the better teams you play, the better their press is. And we've seen this year we didn't do well against Donegal at all in the 2 games in Ballybofey at the end of the year in terms of kickouts, and partly down to the fact it's a smaller pitch, and they were able to press a bit harder probably and cover all the zones a lot easier. But also the fact that they had maybe 4 or 5 men stand at 6'2", 3, 4 in the middle of the field. Whenever you went long, it's impossible to find that mismatch.
Yeah, and then 2016, you got your first Ulster title against Donegal, and that was a great game. Peter Harte got that wonder point at the end.
Yeah, it was probably even more special for me, because I think Donegal had been a bit of a bogey team for me personally. Like the year I made my debut in 2013, it probably was the biggest moment in my career in terms of how much I had to mature, and so it was kind of the day that I felt like I'd over it. So it was a sweet one for me personally.
Yeah, and then probably disappointing. Then you lose to Mayo, as Mayo are probably probably at that stage they were just that bit more experienced in that quarter final. Then.
It was our game, and it was just going to happen, and especially after beating Donegal, who as I say were a bit of a hoodoo for us back then. We think, as you say, the experience did, or inexperience probably told, because we weren't as mentally, and then we lost Sean just after half time in that game, and we felt that a few calls went against us. But there was absolutely of losing overall. We had plenty of opportunities. I had a free kick right at the very end to equalise it that I missed, and Darren had a shot from play after that he missed as well. And we had our opportunities, and I think I was actually talking to somebody about this recently, that, you know, that day whenever we got the free kick at the end, I remember going up to hit it and looking across and seeing Sean sitting on, like, he wasn't even on the sub bench, he was just sitting at the side of the field, and thinking, I'm going to do this for him. And I suppose at that stage I took my mind off what I was actually meant to be doing, which then naturally affected my kick. And again, I think that sort of taught me a bit of a lesson as well, that, you know, focus on your own job and don't worry about other people.
Yeah, and then obviously you back that up the following year again, and you go one better. You get to the semi-final, and it was against Dublin, and there was a lot of hype going into that one, actually, if I remember at the time. Dublin, and you were playing well. Like, I think he's beaten Armagh in the quarterfinal.
Yeah, well, we beat Armagh in the quarterfinal, and, you know, I think that time Armagh really fancied themselves to overturn us again. We had won Ulster, and I think, did we beat Donegal in the semi-final that year? Then we beat Down,
Yeah.
And, you know, Down sort of fancied themselves to beat us. We had so much confidence that day, and then Armagh were sort of primed to beat us as well, and everybody was sort of talking about the Mayo game the last year and how we crumbled in the quarterfinal. We used all that experience and we beat Armagh well, and then we were looking at Dublin in the semi-final, and again we probably thought that this was just a natural progression. We've got to the semi-final now, we'll beat Dublin and we get into the final, and we'll sort of stop them from continuing their dominance. And we sort of felt it was our rite of passage. And again, you know, inexperience again told, and we had sort of spoke in the pre-game. That was the time of Dermot Connolly, wasn't it? The whole time he was making his return, I think.
Yeah.
You know, that was dominating a lot of the talk at that stage as well. And I remember having our meeting the night before and talking about, you know, what Dublin could bring to the game, and we felt like we had everything that we needed to shut it down. And again, I talk about it all the time. The one thing that we didn't talk about was what if Dublin score a goal, you know, in the first 20 seconds or the first couple of minutes, like, and O'Callaghan got the ball, and Dublin never looked back after that. You know, they got the lead and they just sapped up our energy, and they just kept tapping over points, and basically said, look, as long as you don't get a goal, we're going to win this game. Like, and, you know, they were in so much control that whole game that the goal just really knocked us for six. And, you know, then I suppose we were all mightily disappointed, but we knew we weren't massively far away.
Yeah, Dublin, one of those teams that they're so difficult to play because they can play any sort of game. They can play the possession game. They can go toe to toe. If you want to go defensive, they'll try and break you down. Like, and especially if you give them a lead like he did that day, it's very hard to claw back.
Yeah, look, I think like what makes Dublin better than everybody else is the fact that they play their game, and it doesn't matter whether you put 15 men inside your 45 and try to stop them from scoring, or if you go and play 15 on 15, or no matter what style, they will play their game. And, you know, they execute the basics well all the time. Like, Dublin don't, I think what people sort of forget is, and they talk about Dublin at the minute and how it's unfair and split Dublin in two. And, you know, I actually just laugh it off and think how ridiculous some people are whenever they talk. Dublin have 15 players on the pitch at each time that just do the basics right. They don't have a player that kicks points from 50 metres. They don't have a player that kicks an outside of the boot pass 60 metres into space. They don't have anybody that does anything like over and beyond what they need to do. They just do the basics right all the time. It's a team game, and not one of them goes seeking more credit than the other. And I think that's what people forget. Like, if there was a club team dominating like that, like Corofin, that's what their players do. They do the basics right all the time. Nobody tries to outdo somebody else. It's just constantly do the basics, work the ball through the lines, wait for the opportunity to shoot. Don't shoot from a silly place. And, you know, it sounds too simple to be true, but it's so effective and it works all the time.
Yeah, because I even say you can have all the money in the world if you want and the best facilities and all that, but if you don't have the players to execute and put in the hard work and as you said there, the basics, you're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I'm a Man United supporter, and, you know, a lot of people will laugh at me for that at the minute, but like Man United are probably one of the richest teams in the world. They've got players that are getting paid more than anybody else in the world, but they're not winning. And the reason why they're not winning is because the mentality is more about individuals at the minute than it is about the team collective. And there's finger pointing at who's to blame for what, and there's constantly speculation over who's going to leave. Whereas if you look at, say, Man City, like, nobody's talking about De Bruyne leaving, nobody's talking about Sterling leaving, nobody's talking about Aguero leaving. Like, it's just such a team mentality that, even whenever the chips were down there before Christmas, it's, Guardiola just protected his players, a bit like Ferguson did whenever, United were winning. It was just such a team mentality. And if you didn't want to be part of the team, you can leave. It's really simple. And that seems to be the way of it in Dublin. You never hear of anything coming out of camps. Like, I know within Tyrone, like, you're always hearing rumours of, did such and such leave the panel, or did such and such have a riot training, and you're going, no, it didn't happen. But there's probably a bit of truth somewhere in the rumour, not the entire rumour, but you never hear of that coming out of Dublin, and and I suppose that's part of the reason why they're so successful.
Yeah, the following year, then you lose to Monaghan in the, I think it was in Oma, by a couple of points, and it's probably the worst possible start. And you have to go face the qualifiers. But Tyrone are one of these counties, and that like the qualifiers, it seems. Yeah,
we got absolutely. I think, was it maybe 4 points that day, but it was a 4-point hammering. Like, and we were never competing in that, we win it, and we went into the qualifiers. And I think it was maybe this is probably one of my pet hates about the qualifiers, is that we always felt like we were good enough to get a run through the qualifiers, and sometimes it played in the back of your mind that you thought, sure, who cares if we get beat? We can go on the road here and get a few nights away, and we can go and enjoy a few games, and we'll get to where we need to be with a wee bit less stress. And I think that mindset set into a few of us, and there's no point in me sitting here saying that it wasn't me, because it played in the back of your mind that you were sort of looking at the Ulster draw, and you were thinking, we have to beat Monaghan, and then we have to beat maybe a Down or Armagh or Derry in another hell for leather game, and then we have to play Donegal in the final and another hell for leather game. And that only gets us to the same place where if we beat 2 Division 4 teams, a Division 3 team and a Division 2 team, and you were sort of thinking, like, what's the easier route here? Like, and we get away, we get the team bond, we get to get the team together, and we get to work on new things, and there's less pressure on it, and we probably thrived in that. And that was just the way we went for a few years, and we knew that Tyrone could win All Ireland's going through the back door as well, so we didn't have that fear factor that other teams have.
Yeah, but I mean, you look at the first game against Meath, it could have ended very quickly, because I think it was Colin McShane that got an equaliser to send it even just to extra time that day.
Yeah, I remember I was named to start that day. The team was named on the Thursday night, and I remember we travelled down. Me and Mickey O'Neill were the 2 goalkeepers at the time, and we were big buddies. And we sat together on the bus. We roomed together. We lived reasonably close at home. And on the Friday night, we had a team meeting. And at 11 o'clock, the meeting was over, and Mickey Harte pulled me aside and said, "Look, you're not playing tomorrow. I'm playing Mickey." And I sort of just nodded and said, "Yeah, look, that's grand. You're the manager, blah, blah, blah." It wasn't until I went back to the room that it actually hit me what he had said. And I was absolutely, I was furious, because, it didn't feel like it was the right time to be told. I was mature enough at that stage to be told before the team was named that I wasn't going to be playing. And I did take it bad, and I had words with Mickey the next morning, and not bad words, but we spoke it out, and I just sort of asked him that if I ever wasn't to be playing again, that I would find out, prior to the team being named. And, I was man enough to take it. And then whenever I asked Mickey O'Neill when he had found out on the Thursday before training. So that added fuel to the fire. And Mickey O'Neill said that it was the most awkward bus journey and overnight he had ever had, because he didn't know if I knew, and he wasn't allowed to tell me. So it was awkward, but after that, we always knew where we stood, the Thursday before training. And I think, standing up for myself at that stage probably also changed me in terms of my leadership role within the team, and definitely give me more confidence to speak out if there was something that I didn't agree with.
Yeah, because goalkeeper is one of those positions you don't want to be changing too often. I think it's, you see it in soccer as well. It's one of those that you'll only change it unless you probably necessarily have to go near it.
Yeah, like I was just used to always playing, I suppose, and even I think it was the black card brought in. I think it was 2014. I think it was
around that. Yeah,
I got the black card in the first round of Ulster, and Mickey O'Neill came on, and probably was caught off guard at the fact that you're not expecting to come on as a goalkeeper, and I think that's what annoyed me so much about that night in Meath, was that you had to be in a whole new mind frame in terms of you were no longer starting. You were probably starting to think about, right, who's the penalty takers? If I'm coming on, it's going to be a penalty to face. And I think ever since that day that I got the black card, Mickey started to rotate us in the league, and neither of us were ever really comfortable, because you could have a great game and you knew you would be on the bench the next day, or you could have a bad game and think you were dropped. It was always forever playing in your head what was going on. And even as you say, like soccer again, looking at Solskjaer was talking about Henderson this week, and he said like he's the most impatient person he's ever met. But like that's the life of a goalkeeper. That there's probably a very limited chance of you being substituted on, and it's very individual in that aspect, which made it very hard, and even harder that night in Meath. And supposed to go back to your original question, it was that day was probably the closest we've ever came to an upset. In terms of a game that we really thought we could win. We got beat by Armagh 2014, the back door, but that was a game that we just weren't in the mind frame for it at all. The Meath game, we were up for it, and we were ready to go, but they just outfought us, I suppose, on the day, and we did get a bit of a great escape, like in terms of Cahill's last minute point, and then they actually had an opportunity, I think, to win it in. Did they have the opportunity in extra time or something? I remember the left-footed free kick taker hit the post. I think it was after Cahill scored, they got a free kick.
Yeah.
And the left-footed free kick taker hit the post, and I remember being right behind it and thinking, if this goes over, we're only at the start of July here, and the year's over. What am I going to do the rest of the year, sort of thing? And it hit the post and went wide, and we end up going a bit of a run then after it.
Yeah, because you've got Carlow, Cavan, Cork, convincingly enough. So not a bad run, get the momentum going. The Super 8 come. I kind of asked Enda Smith when I had him on, like, do you prefer the Super 8 or rather the knockout, say, straight knockout quarterfinal in Croke Park?
Oh, straight knockout all day long. If I had it my way, you'd play the league, and then there'd be 32 teams put in a hat. And just if you're beat, you're beat, and no back door. And I just think it would add so much to the appeal of Gaelic football again. I said to somebody else, imagine like a Tyrone v Kerry first round of a last 32, and putting in somewhere like Nolan Park or something, and filling it out, and knowing that if you're beat, your year's over. I just think it would add so much. I think Super 8 was a good idea in theory, but it just became so much like dead rubber games, and you wouldn't get the same atmosphere. And people were saying, "Oh, we'll not go to the first one, and we might go to the second." And and you can't blame them, because the money it costs to follow a county team is crazy. Because if you go to games, it's either a long distance travel, or it might be an overnight stay. And if you've got, say, 2 or 3 children, then you have tickets to get in, then you've got food. Like it's just not what it used to be, where the children under 16 went free, and it was maybe a tenner for the adults. You have so much more to take into consideration.
Yeah, because that first game, I'm from Roscommon, and we obviously played Tyrone in Croke Park that very first year of the Super 8s, and it was an empty Croke Park, and it was just probably for you playing, and it was just a boring enough game. Rather, if that was in Hyde, Omagh, or a neutral venue, maybe like a Portlaoise, 20,000 there, you would have had so much better of an atmosphere.
Yeah, that's another thing, I don't really understand why the Super 8 games have to be in Croke Park, because you're never going to fill it out anyway. So as you say, why not take it to, if you're going to play in a neutral venue, why not take it somewhere that you know, right, and what sort of crowd's going to be at this game? Let's fill that stadium. Or, and they try to do the double headers to get a bigger crowd, but again, like Tyrone Virus Common, is it going to get loads of neutrals? Probably not. So why not take it to your even Breffni Park? That's going to be rightly filled out, and you're going to get a good crowd. Or you have to take them sort of things into consideration. And even then, it gets the town of Cavan. It gets a bit of a buzz around it for a day or two. And I think the GA has lost sort of touch of that. They're so obsessed with using Croke Park at the minute that I think it's actually ruining the aura around playing in Croke Park. It's becoming not as special, I suppose, which it should be. If you play in Croke Park, it'd be a real special occasion, and it's actually losing that bit of touch.
Yeah, because we kind of, for the 2 year Super 8s were there was only really 2 games. Donegal were involved in both, with against Mayo in, was it 2019, and then against yourselves up in Ballybofey that day. So the decider, that's the positive way if you look at it. If you get a decider like that on the last day, and you managed to get out on top in that one.
Yeah, that was our first victory in Ballybofey in I'm not sure how long, especially in a championship game. It was, like I said earlier on about 2016 being special. If ever there was a day of exercising demons, it was that Super 8 game, and it was just like the atmosphere that day was electrifying. It was a real hot sunny day. Again, if that game had been in Croke Park, there definitely wouldn't have been as much. It wouldn't have been as romantic, so to speak, in terms of the feeling you got by doing it, or by playing there. And it was so special, and getting that victory and going on then and knowing that it meant something, and that should have been a quarter final. That should have been the game that was a straight knockout game. I know it had that feel to it, but as you say, how many of them games have we came across in the Super 8 yet? And it's very limited.
Yeah, you get through that, and again, Monaghan's another thing, team you've come across in the All Ireland stages, and again, you managed to scrape over that one by a point.
Yeah, again, I suppose we always seem to struggle more against Monaghan whenever it's in the Ulster side of things, and even in the league, we always seem to struggle against them. But for some reason, again, going into that day, it was a bit like the game in 2013. We played them in the championship, and even again after that, I think. And we just had a world of confidence about us. McManus was on fire that whole summer, and it was just a case of, we just felt on that day that if we stopped him, that we would win. And I think, I can't remember whether it was McNamee or Hampsey marked him that day, but I think it was McNamee, and he done everything he could and more, and McManus still got 7 points. And that's just the player Conor McManus is. Now, Monaghan are starting to come a whole lot better in terms of they have a lot more players coming through, and they're just not a one-trick pony as we sort of seen them on that day. But we just had so much confidence going into the game, and we got over the line. And I don't know whether I would have been as confident playing them again this year. But I suppose you take every game as it comes, and they would have been going in thinking the same, that it was there. A bit like us in 2017 going into the semi-final, they'd have been thinking, right, this is our time to get over Tyrone in a semi-final, and that experience will stand them the next time it comes around.
Yeah, I mean the final itself probably again, obviously a disappointment anytime you lose a final, and you got off to a good start as well. You had Dublin, it was a 5-1 at a stage or something in that first 15 minutes, and you seem to be just settled very well.
Yeah, that whenever you're younger, you always dream of playing in All Ireland finals, and again, then experience probably told that day that we got the 5-1 up, and I remember looking up and thinking, this is it. I'm going to win All Ireland today. This is what it's all about. And then we had a wide, and then I had 2 or 3 really bad kickouts. One of them ended up in a penalty, and we just there's no other way of saying it. We crumbled between probably the 18th, 19th minute and half time, and we, looking back on it, we were naive and thought that we could just continue to play the same way. And again, going back to what I'd said earlier, Dublin just continued to play the same way. They didn't panic. They waited for their chances, and the chances came for them. And that's why they're undoubtedly the greatest team there ever has been. And there's no other way about it.
Yeah, is there maybe fear factor is the wrong word or whatever, but you've seen Terry be a point up going into injury time. Mayo have pushed them so close. Like, are they one of those teams that you just think, is it actually going to happen today for us? Because if they get a run on you, it's very hard to stop them.
It's probably a bit weird because every time I play Dublin, I think that we're going to win. And
yeah,
it's and we have beaten them in the league a few times since I've started playing. But their mentality, I call them mentality monsters, because they're just so. It doesn't matter what's happening. As I've said a few times, it doesn't matter. If they're behind. You look at the All Ireland final, 2019. Man down at half time.
Yeah.
Even going into the last few minutes, they're getting beat, and Dean Rock has a chance to win it at the very end. And probably if Croke Park had grass, another 3 or 4 steps back for him to get his proper run up, he nails that every day of the week. And then they go on and win the replay, and they just never look under pressure. It's just a case of, no matter what happens, we have dealt with this scenario, and we know that we're going to get the outcome we desire. But sooner or later that will come to a head, and somebody will beat them, and then somebody else will get a bit more belief. And maybe that day when we were 5-1 up, we should have slowed the game down a wee bit more, maybe a few injuries and stuff, and add up the clock a little bit. And we'll have that experience the next time, if we get to that stage again, that we'll maybe have a bit more ideas what we have to do. Again, looking at the 2020 final, Mayo are ahead. They have a few opportunities to score.
Yeah.
How many balls did they drop short in the Cluxton's hands? It must have been 6 or 7 throughout the game. And Mayo don't do that. And again, they should have the experience, but this year they brought through so many young players that's going to stand to them as well whenever it comes to it. But it's just Dublin seemed to get the right blend between bringing through the right number of players each year. They never seem to have a big overturn in their squad, but there's always somebody new comes in and plays. And they might be a bit part player this year, and they're building up their experience, and next year they're a starter. And you look at Bulger, I'm not even sure how it's pronounced, but last year was a bit part player, and this year he's one of their main men. And that's just the way they seem to go, and it's just constantly building up.
Yeah, and then the year just gone by, you said they're 2020. Again, it was mixed. You did stay up in the end in Division 1, which is probably a key target every year to maintain Division 1. And then the Donegal nearly got the dress rehearsal in the league a couple of weeks before that, and then the actual championship game. And again, kind of one that could have went either way, and it just went with Donegal that day.
Yeah, look, we went into the first game against Donegal in the league knowing that we had to win either that game or the Mayo game to stay up. And we decided, well, the management decided to go a flat 15 behind the ball, and we're not giving anything away. And, did we agree with it? Not entirely. Did we get on with it? Yes, because you do what you're told. And, it didn't work out for us at all. In the league game, we went to Mayo the next week and done the complete opposite and just went hell for leather, and we got I think we just escaped a 1-point victory, that kept us up. I think a draw would have done us anyway, but we escaped it. That was a real windy day. And then we went back to Ballybofey the next week with a different game plan, and a few different things went against us in terms of we're so close to getting that goal in the second half. That I think would have flipped the game a wee bit more. But again, I'm a big believer in, if you get beat, you get beat because the other team's better than you. I don't blame referees. I have no belief in luck at all. I just think it's a case of the best team wins, and Donegal were the best team on the day. And I know afterwards there was a bit of talk about how rough they were, but at the end of the day, like you send out your man markers to rough up the other player. It doesn't matter whether you're, Tyrone, or whether you're Donegal, Dublin do it, Kerry do it. Like, so to hear, a bit of complaints about how rough, Donegal were from different sections of, I suppose, our support as well. Like, and you were thinking, like, what do you think was happening to their best players? Like, it's, and if we had won, Donegal would have come out with the same thing, oh, they roughed up Murphy, or they roughed up whoever. Like, that's what goes on in the GAA now at the minute, and that's what happens. Like, you just have to get on with it.
Yeah, is it hard to go from system to system, or do you like that to have a different game plan for each game, or would you rather say we're going to play it this way and let them worry about us?
I would be a big believer in finding your own plan that suits your own team, and like, again, going back to them, the Dublin chop and change and decide they're going to, work to suit the other team. Yes, they're man markers, and everybody has man markers, and they get their job done. But
yeah,
if you have to be fit to, yes, you need different plans for different stages of the game, but predominantly you need to be thinking about what suits you and how best effective your team is. If you've got 6 great forwards and you're playing with 2 sweepers, you're losing out on having that threat, which straight away gives our team an attacking mismatch, basically, because they've got 2 extra players coming from their back line, and it sets the tone for them. They can even leave a man back and have cover while still having that extra man going forward, which creates overlaps up the pitch. But again, it depends on the stages of the game as well. You have to be able to retreat at times and soak up a bit of energy. But I would like to see a bit more of an attacking side of our team. I think we've got the players there, and it sort of annoyed me every year that whatever stage we got beat, it was, it's because Tyrone don't have a forward line. And you were looking at our bench, and you were looking around the county, and you were thinking, oh yeah, we do have forwards, we have loads of them, but it's getting them onto the pitch at the right time. And maybe that's something that we will be looking at. But again, I don't pick the team. I just play and do what I'm told, and that's the way it is.
Yeah, and obviously there is a change in management now. Mickey Harte did step away at the end of last year. Like, does he even get the credit he probably deserves for the longevity, for whatever, how many years it was? Maybe, I don't know, was it within the county or even outside the country itself? Like, people probably do forget that the first 10 years rather than they look back maybe the last 5, 6, 7 years.
Yeah, I suppose it's a bit like the Batman quote: you either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become a villain. Like, and it's a bit like that. Like, did he overstay his welcome? That's not for me to decide. I wanted to play for Tyrone. Mickey Harte gave me the chance to play for Tyrone, and I'll be forever grateful for that. Will I leave because he's not there? No, I'm still going to play for Tyrone. At the end of the day, I'm there to play for Tyrone. I'm not there to play for any specific manager. What Mickey Harte brought to Tyrone in terms of, like, for a county that had lost 2 All-Ireland finals, only 2, had only got to 2 All-Ireland finals in whatever amount of years, to turn around and win 3 in a period of 6 years. Nobody will ever get enough credit for that. And in years to come, whenever we're all gone and it's only record books, people will look back and they'll not even know who the players were, never mind the manager, and they'll just see that Tyrone won 3 All-Irelands. And and that's, I suppose, one of the players that played in them teams and played with me at the start as well told me, look, whenever you retire, you're forgotten about within the night time. Like, you get it's sad to see him go, but once you're gone, that's it, and nobody remembers you. And I'm forever grateful for Mickey for what he's done, but he'll never get the credit that he's due in terms of them All-Ireland successes.
Yeah, and then in terms of the new management team, probably a freshness to the campaign. You're probably looking forward to working under Fergal Logan and Brian Dooher.
Yeah, like, for Brian, I suppose, captain to Tyrone to 2 All-Irelands. He's, if you want a role model, you've got it. Then you've got Fergal, who was a Tyrone stalwart as well, and just the absolute ultimate gentleman. I've had a number of run-ins with Fergal in terms of chats outside of football, and just you will never meet a nicer man, and at the same time somebody who will tell you how it is. The first time we met since he became Tyrone manager, it was, this is where we see you. This is where you have to make improvements, and that's something that you can't underestimate as well. Like, if somebody new is coming in, it would be easy for them to look at, I suppose, me as somebody that's experienced and say, yeah, we're happy with you just to stay as number one. But it wasn't the case at all. It was, you have things that you can improve on in your game, and this is where we need you to go. And you've got somebody behind you that's not far away, and if you want to keep your position, this is what's expected. And Brian's the same, very straight talking. I'd never had a conversation with Brian until he joined up with Fergal as joint managers, and again, very straight talking, gentleman, won't be afraid to tell you how it is. And then you look at the backroom team, and you've got 3 men with All-Ireland medals as well, who have the ultimate respect all around the county. Peter Donnelly, to have that man back is massive. None of the players wanted to see him go whenever he left. There were a lot of background things going on there, and for to get him back with a year of working with Ulster under his belt, a year working with another county, you can already see the change in him. Joe McMahon coming in with county experience, again, ultimate gentleman, and somebody who won't be afraid to tell you how it is too. And then Collie Holmes, who I'd never really spoke to beforehand as well, and probably one of the most underrated Tyrone players to win All Ireland. Just went through without people really asking any questions about what role he was doing, and then to win a championship with Dungannon last year, which was a real outside bet. So that shows the sort of pedigree he's bringing in, and to have a team of 5 like that is just huge for the county and huge for the players, and the excitement is just through the roof at the minute.
Yeah, because it's a clean slate for fellas who might be getting a look in even outside the panel, and yeah, they're probably looking to impress straight away in that first training session, and maybe just give that I suppose people say the manager bounce, but players are eager to impress.
Yeah, look, the way we sort of looked at it was nobody's position was safe, and there's players that had left the panel over the last couple of years for a variety of reasons. They're coming back, they want to be involved. You've got players around the county, as you say, that maybe didn't get a look in under the previous management that are now getting seen. And you've got a couple of the boys from Dungannon that won the championship last year in, and it's just you can feel everything building, like, and we're just hoping that we can then show on the pitch the respect that we have for them boys, and the work that they're putting in behind the scenes, that it follows through. Obviously we're not getting to train at the minute, which is it's, I wouldn't say disappointing, because there's a whole lot bigger things going on that stops that, but we're already far more active during this lockdown than we were during last lockdown, in terms of team meetings and doing that sort of thing, which it just shows the work ethic that them men have behind them, and what they want to achieve joining the team.
Yeah, we'll wrap up with a few questions people sent in. First one would have been, I suppose we'll combine it into 2, your favourite save and favourite score you've had in your career.
But favourite save would probably be going back to it's hard to know. I haven't really thought about that one before. Yeah. Probably Michael Murphy's penalty in my debut year in the league, 2013, saving his penalty because of who he was, and the respect that I have for him, and the esteem that I hold him in, to save his penalty at an important time of the game, and was huge for me. Obviously, again, didn't cover myself in glory after it, but that was massive for me. And then my favourite score would be against Kerry in the semi-final defeat in 2015. I scored a free kick from out near the sideline, the 45, and that sort of sticks out in my head.
How do you improve the distance of your free kicks off the ground?
That's a question I get asked quite frequently, and there's only one way of answering it. It's just absolute practice. It's like asking how do you get good at maths in school, or how do you get good at, creative writing or whatever. Like it's down to practice, and people sort of say, how do you score 45? Well, before you score 45, you have to score from the 21 and move your way out. So I suppose it's starting off close to the goals, getting your technique right, and then working your way back with a harder strike.
A typical training week during lockdown.
You're going to sink me here. Is this the training week that I'm meant to be having?
Yeah, you're meant to be having, or you can make one up or whatever.
I suppose for me it would be just like you'd be trying to get onto the pitch at least 2 times to do a bit of running, and into the gym maybe 3 times to do just your weight stuff and your mobility work. And at the minute I don't really do much kicking because just the weather's horrible for it. If I'm getting outside, it's let's get this running session done as quickly as I can. And during the last lockdown I took in to run the roads, and I was up to about half marathon distance. So I'm hoping this lockdown ends pretty quick because I don't want to be back at that.
Yeah. What do you prefer? Is it being a goalkeeper or playing outfield?
Definitely playing outfield. If I had the opportunity to play outfield for Tyrone, I definitely would have took it. So I would prefer to play outfield. Yeah.
Most memorable victory?
That Donegal Super 8s, or else the Ulster final against Donegal, one of the two.
And well, how often in a normal year? Well, this is the last one. How often do you work on your kicking?
I suppose like we're already out of the house quite a bit, with training. So I always tried to, prior to training, whenever boys are hitting shots or whatever, I tried to work on my kickouts, then send the ball back out. So I'd always have my tee set down and be practicing striking off the tee at that stage. And then after training, I would have stayed for, a certain amount of kicks, and I would always try to finish with 5 45s in a row, and work my way up. So if I scored 5 in a row, I'd try to get 6 and 7 and 8 and so on. And me and Benny Gallen had a competition going there for throughout the year where we have 1 kick each then at the end to, in terms of competition, and you only get 1 each, and we kept the score, so that adds a bit of competition side to it.
It's supposed to finish up the year 2021. We don't know when exactly Inter-County will start or what structure it will be, but in a normal world where there's a league and championship, what would be the aims this year?
As I said probably at the very start of the podcast, like the aims to win, win every game, and I really wouldn't play if I didn't think that Tyrone could go an unbeaten season, which we have never done that, obviously. While I was there, I wouldn't play, and we'll have the aims again this year to do it. Whether we can, sometimes it is out of your hands. Sometimes all teams just play better, and sometimes they're better prepared. And hopefully this year we'll be in a position where we're the best prepared team to launch an attack against the bigger teams. And I suppose we have a lot to prove in terms of, have we beat Dublin, a Kerry, or a Mayo in a big game? Not since I've started to play. So that's something that we probably need to look at and rectify before we think about winning trophies.
Brilliant, Niall. Well, thanks very much for coming on, and best of luck for the year ahead.
No problem. Thank you.